We live in times where so many people want to stand out, trying to stand out in your careers, in your relationships, even on social media, where the young girls want to be baddies, they want to trend, and our young boys want to be bados. But the truth is that the more you try harder to stand out, the more you look like everyone else. You know, um, standing out or standing out goes beyond the trend and the moment. You have to have trust, you need to create impact, and also you need to add value before you can stand out. Standing out is not about being making noise or being in the moment. You know, it's not about visibility. It's about what impact you create, how you can add value to your system, to your environment, to your employers, and to your immediate family as well. So, I started my career about 19 years ago, where I worked with one of the best banks in Nigeria. And I started as a personal banker, or what we call as, or what we refer in the Nigerian context as as a marketer. And it wasn't easy. Of course, it came with its own challenges. It wasn't rosy all the way. But I soon realized that my performance were in two folds. I was going to be measured on two different kind of targets. What I brought in as deposits and the income I made for the bank. And I had to balance it. We all know that targets are crazy and things like that, right? But I didn't let that deter me. I was more focused on what I could learn, how I could solve problems, and how I could bring value to my team. So I quickly identified mentors that I could work with in the system, those that were more knowledgeable than me, had more experience, and I offered myself. I wanted to learn. Show me what you're doing. Let me be of help. Send me on errands. Take me along with me when you're discussing with those big clients or customers. When you're closing big ticket transactions, can I be in the room? Can I observe? And I started to align myself. I had a mentor, or when I say I had two mentors. And while I was trying to work on meeting the targets on one side, I was also trying to learn. I wanted to become a knowledge expert. And soon after, or will I say a couple of years after, 2 years later, after I joined, someone was going to resign from the team. And this, when I mean someone, I meant someone that was a senior person up there, very, very senior. Someone that had probably more, maybe 15 years or 20 years experience. And that person was going to resign to go elsewhere, to chase other opportunities. And someone spotted me and said, okay, we have work on our hands. Somebody in this team is leaving, and you might have to manage some of the big accounts in this branch. And I said, me? I looked at myself, me? So she gave us, that was me and another colleague of mine, go and understudy these clients' transactions, look at their file from the day they opened these accounts to date. And we did that. And out of those 4 huge accounts that were carrying the branch as at that time in terms of income, 3 of them were assigned to me to manage. And that's when things just started changing for me in my career. Why did that happen? At that point in time, I never knew why. Who was I? I was just a young employee. I had people that were older than me in the system, my age, my experience, but why was I selected? So someone, somewhere, took notes of me observed me, saw that I was trying to solve problems, saw that I had the passion to solve problems, saw that I wanted to do things right, saw that I was going beyond the norm, above and beyond, beg your pardon, to satisfy customers. And so I was assigned. And not too long from then, I became a knowledge expert. I became a subject matter expert in credit underwriting, risk management, and a couple of other kinds of transactions. I began to do the first things that had never been done in that branch or within that zone. And people from my colleagues from other zones and other branches were being referred to me for some certain transactions. Why? Because I showed passion, I showed interest, I wanted to serve, I was open. Years later, 2 years after I joined the bank, and even before this scenario happened, I was going to be promoted, right? I had missed the promotion, and it doesn't feel good when you miss a promotion, and of course, when you're disappointed. And time passed, and they were discussing somewhere at senior management level. When I mean executive management level, I'll put it that way. And someone mentioned my name and said, somebody is due for promotion. Somebody has been working hard. I didn't know I was working hard, unconsciously. And somebody was adding value to the system. So he's going to make the promotion list. But this time around, I knew I was going to be promoted. Let's give him a double promotion. It's something that had not happened in my branch as at that time, that I had never seen. And why am I saying this? When you're doing the right thing and you remain focused, there's somebody that will speak for you somewhere. You won't be in that room. Decisions will be taken on your behalf when you're not there. I wasn't there. My boss at that time wasn't even there. It was my boss's boss that was in the room. And I'd had just few interactions with this person. He was high up there and he said, we have to give you double promotion. And my manager called me and said, this is what's going to happen. Expect your name and it's going to be double. You're going to miss one level. I said, really? Fine. It happened. So my career grew. I progressed through the ranks. And about 13 years after then, I was faced with making a very, very difficult decision. Probably the hardest decision I had to make in my lifetime till date. I wanted to Japa, So I planned for it. I worked for it. I put in the work to Japa. But when the time came for me to Japa, I started having second thoughts because I had a wonderful career. My future was bright in that space within the organization. I had built in relationships, with customers, with colleagues, with my senior management. So why do I want to leave all of this and travel out of the country? So I had sleepless nights. Financially, I was also stable. So the long and short of it is that after some time, I reluctantly jackpot, not with my two legs. I put one foot on the other side, and the other one was inside, was here in Nigeria because I didn't want to resign. So I just took like a leave of absence, settled my family. I came back, continued working, went back again. Sorry, that's when I took the second leave. I took a longer leave. And while I was there, I migrated to Canada, for your information. And the naysayers always said, if you go there, you're an experienced person, you won't get a good job, you do odd jobs, it's going to be very difficult, there's no point for you to go. It was difficult for me to even think of all of that. But I did go eventually. Times were hard. COVID had just set in. It was COVID. Employers were not hiring. I wasn't even getting interviews, and I began to wonder if I had the right skill set. But again, I had developed myself, done some professional exams, done some research even before I left. But the job interviews were not coming. I remained focused. I got my first job after a very long time, and but soon after I got that job, things began to change. It was a good job. It was an investment banking space. I was challenged to do something different from what I was used to in Nigeria, but I quickly learned. I was very open about the job, and I said to my employers that I'm willing to learn this new phase of my career. So I had to relaunch my career in a different field of financial services, and I'm happy I did that. I did what I could do, but the good thing is that, like I said, you sometimes is trying to stand out. You don't have to put in so much effort. Sometimes standing out you don't have to cry, you don't have to sweat, and you don't have to put in your blood sometimes. Once you have clarity of purpose and you know what you're doing, and you know that this is where you are and this is where you want to be, and you know that there are no shortcuts to it, you get there. Someone is going to notice you. One day, I saw an opportunity in one of my dream organizations where I dreamt of working. The title was big. The task was good. The job description was perfect. And the job description aligned 100% with the last project that I just took. The project that I was assigned to do that I wasn't hired for, but I was assigned to do, and I took on it. So that kind of project was what I was supposed to go do in this other financial institution that I've always admired from a distance. I went in for the interview. It was a rigorous one, but it was one of those interviews that I did not prepare so much for, because I was like, I don't know if I'm going to get this job. I'll try my best. I don't have to have sleepless nights rehearsing or researching. But from the job description, it's 100% what I presently do, and I'll just give it a shot. If you know financial services in the US and investment banks, they do their thorough due diligence before they employ anyone. I went for the first interview. I passed the first stage. Second stage. After that, I had the third, fourth, fifth, sixth, and seventh. And by the grace of God, I will say, I stood out. I don't know till today what made me stand out during the interview process, but I was very, very organic. I was original, and I spoke from my heart, and I landed the role. It was a life changer for me. I literally doubled my income. I was working with one of the top investment banks in the world as a VP. So I'll ask you, what does standing out mean to you? Is there anybody that is willing to share what stand out means to you? What it means for you to go beyond the norm? Is there anyone willing to say? Because it could mean different things to different people. For some, you just want to be the most talented in your class, in your space. You want to graduate with a CGPA of 4.5, 4.8, But the truth is that the brightest people sometimes don't stand out. Sometimes the best candidates don't even get the jobs during the job interviews. People look out for other things. They look out for originality. They look out for purpose, genuineness of purpose. So I urge you today that no matter where you find yourself, no matter the circumstances you find yourself, you can always stand out. You don't have to be rich and famous to stand out. You may not be driving it now, you may not be living it now, but if you have the purpose, you have the passion, and you are determined, you will get to where you're going to. If you try the first time you fail, you try the second time you fail, the third, fourth, fifth time, please do not get discouraged. People that have stood out and gone beyond the obvious are people that have tried and failed several times and they kept trying. If you tried the business or you tried something and you gave up too soon, and someone else has tried it and failed and reinvented the wheel and learned. So you try, you fail, you learn, you try again, you fail, you learn, and you keep repeating. And the truth is that success is going to find you. For all the successful people you see today, or those people that are standing out, they've all failed at some point. When I migrated to Canada, I thought I failed. When I wasn't getting job interviews, I thought I had failed. But those things that I was looking forward to achieving, that I dreamt of achieving, even while I was in Nigeria before I migrated, were things that I achieved and left behind to come back home. I achieved them within a short time. What will take some people much longer to achieve, I did. And I did that because, with humility, in all of this, I did that with humility. So I was focused. You can be focused. Be sure of what you want to do. Don't be proud. Build relationships. Build trust, and create impact. Thank you.